What's going on, everybody? It's Soul Tone, and we are tuning in for lesson 4 today, which is going to be composition. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Composition is choosing those 1,000 words. Creating a picture is as much an art as it is a science. You got to think about how you want the person to feel when they're looking at your picture. Where do you want them to look? And do you want their eye to linger there, or do you want to just bounce around? And so the things I'm gonna show you in this video are gonna help you when you decide on those things, how to achieve those effects and goals. All right, let's start with the biggest part of composition, which is basically how you divide up your page. Doesn't matter whether it's vertical or horizontal, the same rules still apply. You've probably heard of something called the rule of thirds, which is the most common way, that is not a third, to divide up your paper. That's a little off, but that's a lot better. So basically you divide your paper into 3 equal sections, or I'm sorry, 9 equal sections. And then you want the most important objects in your page or your image to line up along those axes. Like, somebody a lot smarter than me has done scientific research on where people look first and all this kind of weird, crazy stuff. And it boils down to that, basically. So here and here at these intersections is where you want to put your main thing. And the way this actually started is kind of cool, to me anyway. So you know about the golden ratio, the spiral and Fibonacci numbers and all that kind of stuff. It used to be originally, that's all artists used to use. I'm not even sure if I can, let's see. Yeah, that's off. It's close, but it's off. But that's originally all artists used to use. And then somebody realized, that's doing a bit too much. How can we simplify this? And it boils down to, if you just do the rule of thirds, you're basically applying the golden ratio. So now, if you're doing a portrait, right? You can put the person's gaze along this here. Oops. Or if you're drawing a landscape, you want a tree off in the distance on a hill. And then, kind of overlooking the grass blowing in the wind. It just helps to divide up your subject matter, where you have one side of the page is clear and it's open and the person's eye can rest there, or they can look at the other side of the page and they can study the detail of what you've drawn and their eye can move through your artwork. So along with these two things, there's obviously different angles you can place the eye or the camera. If you think about it like you're taking a photo, makes more sense that way. Let's draw a couple more frames and we'll do some examples. You can take that same principle and then apply it in different ways. Like there's something called a cowboy shot in film, which is basically your character from the waist up, called a cowboy shot because in westerns you had to be able to see your gunslinger sling a gun, unless it wouldn't be a western. So still on the rules of thirds. Should have drew all these lines before I copy pasted everything. But then, so you know your character is going to be here from the waist up. Put his chest in there. That's probably a little too high. Let's see. Put his pelvis about right there. So his chest goes about right there. Another style of shot you might see is where everything's actually just very symmetrical. If you ever seen, it's called the Grand Budapest Hotel, I think. Wes Anderson, matter of fact, any Wes Anderson movie, if you pay attention to his movies, he loves symmetry, and he'll do a lot of very symmetrical things. So it works well for like palatial, luxurious, like landscape type stuff. And then obviously you can establish this line here anywhere. It doesn't have to just be in the middle. You might want to move it lower. You might want to move it higher. Depends on what the effect is you're going for. But let's put like a little Disney castle down here or something. Can I say Disney on here? I don't know how copyrights and stuff work. We should be fine. Something else you can do if you want something even more interesting, you can do like a radial thing. So then you got like a little circle here. And maybe somebody's looking up in a forest or inside the middle of a city and there's a bunch of tall buildings around. Or they could be a baby and there's a whole bunch of people standing around looking at them. Like the possibilities are endless. Another common arrangement you might see is an L. So say you have a character, I don't know, being all broody and moody in his jacket or whatever. Hands in his pockets, right? And then over here, somewhere in the background, you might have like a house or something. And he's walking away. Perhaps one of the more famous kinds, or the most famous I can think of, is triangular. If you think of that statue that the Pope owns, the Pietà, that's a really cool, like, was that Michelangelo? Leonardo? One of those real talented young Italian dudes, when he was like 20 or 19 or whatever, made this beautiful marble statue called the Pietà. Like perhaps one of the, nah, I can't say it's one of the greatest, because there's a lot of dope Italian Renaissance art. But when it comes to triangles, this is the first thing that pops into mind, is the Pietà. It's like the Virgin Mary holding Jesus after he got pulled down off the cross or whatever, and like her cape is billowing and he's laid in her arms, his arm is dangling and his feet are over here and stuff like that. But she, when you pay attention to it, she's way too big. Like, she is massive, but ignore that and just like look at the composition of the picture, or the statue. The sculpture, that's what it's called. Yeah, look at the composition of the sculpture. It's a very beautiful sculpture. But yeah, we could keep going, but take some time to explore those on your own. Those are just some basic. I gave you what, 5 of them? Yeah, that's cool. We'll stop there because we could just do this all day. All right, so the next thing to think about after the big breakdown of your composition is what's called the rule of asymmetry. And that's basically, the human eye is drawn to odd numbers of objects for some reason. Like if I have 2 of these, let's just split down the middle. But if I have 1, 2, and 3, or let's see, let's draw these like this so they're bigger. You're going to be looking over here. Like, yeah, you'll notice that, but you're going to be looking over here to figure out what's going on over here. So basically, you are drawn to uneven numbers, which I know we just mentioned Wes Anderson and how he does a lot of symmetry. These are all called rules, but all rules in art are meant to be broken. These are just more like guidelines, but guidelines of art doesn't sound as cool. Next thing is what's called the rule of space. And the rule of space, you can think of it as trying to create movement on the page. So let's do something like this. We'll put a car in here right quick. So right now the car is sitting still. If we add, you know, some Dragon Ball Z speed lines, now the car is moving through space. That is the rule of space. Creating action through movement, or through creating action and movement through line work or brush work. if you're painting. And so, how can you practice this becomes the question. The easiest way is just do a bunch of different thumbnail compositions. And what that means is a lot of boxes, and just pick a subject that you really feel confident drawing. And then you're not actually drawing the full detailed picture. Like, don't even think of it like that. Like, let's do, I don't know, Arthur trying to pull the sword from the stone. I think that was him with Excalibur. And then try and do it from a different angle or something. Like, what if it's, instead of just head on like that, you're looking at it from, I don't know, from above. So his cape is billowing out like this. Maybe he's leaning back so he'd be looking up this way while straining. And he's standing on top of the mound like this. And, you know, you got things around it like this. Or what if it's a close-up from a low angle, so it's mostly the sword in view down here. And his hands are the main focus, right? So now it's him from a high angle. Just try different kind of things. How many spins can you put on the same picture? And that, my friends, is composition. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions. I will answer them. I'll stick around for a little bit. And then, of course, I'll always check back from time to time to answer for as long as possible. So next time we'll talk about is the last of the fundamentals in these video series I've been doing. We're just going to talk about how to get good fast. So we'll probably just hang out and I'll just draw for a little bit. And I'll tell you like what I do and what things help me improve faster. Check that out when it's ready. Matter of fact, you turn on notifications, you'll know when it's ready. And subscribe.